Welcome to the Road Traveled podcast. My name is Jesse Hunt, and today's episode is a bit of a continuation, or part two, if you will, of the episode that I released earlier this week with Jay Perry. In today's episode, Jay tells us about his book that he wrote and recently released within the last year called My Dad Got Sick. It's all about when Jay's dad got diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, and Jay made the decision to quit working and become his full-time caregiver. I've read the book. It's emotional. It's tough to get through at times, but I will say this, that it is very well written. Jay writes it from the perspective of somebody that is going through this for the first time. He never comes across like he's giving too much advice or preaching to the reader. He doesn't come across like he is a professional doctor that may not have ever experienced this. What he does come across as is a genuine human that is just sharing his experiences, the things that him and his family did for his father to help him get through this troubling time. And while I have never personally experienced anything quite like Jay has to that extreme, I did find ways to relate to it. And I think that whether you are going through something like exactly like what Jay went through, or whether you have something else happen in your life, I think that you'll be able to draw from the experiences that Jay shares, and they will help with your life. So it may not be a book for everybody, but I highly recommend checking it out if you yourself are going through something like this, or you know of somebody going through something like this. Like I said before, this episode is really great. It's quite personal. Jay shares a lot, but I think you're going to enjoy it. So thanks for watching. Enjoy the show. You recently wrote a book.
I did.
About a unfortunate.
Right.
Unfortunately,
the book
exists. Yes.
I wish it didn't.
I like how you open with that.
Right.
And you kind of put it out there in a way that speaks to a bunch of people in the way that, like, I'm sorry that you are like this
possession
exists.
Possession of this book.
Exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I went through a period of my time. Well, my dad got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer in March of 2013. And that's kind of right then I decided to almost like just stop working to take care of him and whatever he would need. Yeah. So he was given 9 months to a year to live on March 5th, 2013. And I wanted to maximize how much time I had left with him and spend it all with him. And during that time, he became my best friend. And he did amazing. He was a fighter. He ended up passing away 2.5 years later, and along the whole way, just kind of baffling doctors. And I learned a lot about the caregiving world. I knew nothing going in on how to be a caregiver or what to do. So this book is my story, my ideas, my dad's fight journey, our journeys on the unfortunate side of disease and illness.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to write this book.
That's interesting. No one's ever said that to me before, and I like that. I'm sorry you had to write this book.
Yeah,
because I get it. It sounds like a very negative thing, but I totally understand it and appreciate it 100%.
I'm happy that I read it. I mean, I'm not going through what you went through, but I'm glad that I read it because I definitely learned something from it. I'm an emotional guy, and I can honestly say that, like, I was laying over there on the couch, like, crying a few times.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, no, it's I found ways to relate with it.
For sure. You've been through so much, right? More than anyone. And knocking on death's door has come closer to you than a lot of us.
Sure.
So you can relate to a lot of things.
I found this one thing when you wrote about the hand sanitizer and how you guys at the front of your house had the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And my dad was like a tyrant. When anybody came into the house, like he took the bottle and would squirt it on them.
Yeah, because it's you have your transplant. You're so prone to infection, and the littlest thing can throw everything off. And I think that's in any disease. It's those little things that people don't think about, right? On how something can easily enter your home and how easily you can prevent that.
Exactly.
Right. So that's one of the little things I wanted to get out to people, that, not the emotion, there's emotional things in there, but that's like, I guess, a practical thing when fighting.
Well, what I enjoyed about the book is and I was telling my parents about this earlier today, and they want to read it, so I'm glad that you actually brought me a physical copy, because I'm going to give it to them. But what I liked about it was, and the thing that I related the most was, you weren't some psychiatrist, you weren't some doctor, stating these facts that studies have found. Yeah. It was a very authentic, truthful, heartfelt, like real experience that you went through. And you were literally and you said this multiple times, you're just sharing what you went through. This isn't necessarily the right or wrong way to do it, but this is my experience. Right.
And like you said, I made it a point to say that I'm not a doctor. I just wrote about what worked for us. And yeah, it was tough at times being that vulnerable in the book. Like you've read it, open up like crazy sometimes. But again, I always knew that this is going to hopefully go to help another caregiver.
Yep.
And that was all so worth it to me, because I was looking for something when I was going through this and couldn't find it. A million books about there dealing with cancer if you have it, but not what about when a loved one has it. It's almost like when a loved one gets diagnosed, and I'm sure your family kind of felt this a little bit with your situation. It's the whole family gets diagnosed, right?
Yeah, I will say though that, like, while I did have certain experiences, I would never put them in the same realm of what cancer is. What we had was like nobody knew what a kidney did necessarily, and I think a lot of the human population kind of feels the same way. So there was that learning curve, but everybody knows when you hear about cancer.
Some hope on your side because you transplants and whatnot.
And it's just it's just not like honestly. I'll be honest. Like the one thing that kind of like kept me going and gave me a positive outlook when I was going through this was knowing that like I don't have it as bad as some people do.
Interesting. So that's funny, because when the doctors came into the room and said to my dad, you got 9 months to live, it was so easily. They just say it like that, like that. And I right then thought, like, okay, thank you for your time.
Yeah. I got it from here.
Yeah. But watch this.
Yeah.
I got this. Right. And I was going to figure out a way to cure him. Never mind these doctors that go to med school for 10, 15 years of their lives. I'm going to do it. This photographer, this guy who went to Haiti, he's going to figure out how to cure stage 4 lung cancer. And once you start researching more and more, and over months of time, you start to get defeated and just realize, no, I'm not going to cure this.
Right.
So stop playing doctor and start playing son.
Right.
And that's when things changed for me. And I did what I could and gave everything I have, and my best tool that I could offer in my dad's healing, that I call it, is my time to him and spending it with him. It's funny because like I didn't quit work per se, but I stopped aggressively pursuing work. If something came to me from a previous client and I had the time to do it, I would still do it. Early on in my dad's diagnosis, he wasn't that bad. He was fine. He could function as a normal human being. As I say in the book, he was exercising every day, and that's what kind of kept him going. But he would come on road trips with me if I had to go get a piece of photography gear or a prop or something. And I think he loved it, and I loved it too, that he got to see what I did, and that I got to show him some of the different photography stores and places I went, and we got to spend time together as father and son, which I'm not saying we had a terrible relationship. We were always fine, but it grew stronger when he got diagnosed.
did it become more apparent that nobody intentionally takes time for granted, to time with your loved ones for granted, right? But I think you're probably more conscious of it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny you say that because when this book came out, a bunch of my friends bought it and read it. And I was very nervous about that because this book is intended for a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you guys aren't going to like it. You're going to hate it. It's not for you. You're not in caregiving position. Like, I was really worried. And after a while, a friend came back to me and said, you know what? I read your book. I'm not in this position, but it made me reevaluate how I treat my family in terms of how much time I give them. And I'm making changes based on what I read, so thank you. And I was like, I never even thought of that as a possibility, a possible outcome for a reader.
Sure.
And it made me happy to hear that it was possible to reach more people than just caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the book is intended for them. And going off of that, I had a friend call me and she said, my partner right now is going through caregiving for his mother. He's not talking about it much. I try to get out what I can, but I can't. If I buy your book, will I understand what's going on in his head? Because I want to be there and help him, but I just don't know what he's going through. And I said, I think so. So she bought it. And as it turns out, she, can relate to a lot of the, his moods more,
mm-hmm.
right? His time that he does need alone, she understands now because of what she picked up, because of what I was going through. So it wasn't intended to help these other areas, but it is, and I love that a lot of people are getting something out of it.
Honestly, that's one thing that I thought was interesting, was that so many people that can be so far away from this particular circumstance that you are talking about can get something from this book.
Yeah, and I mean, it can happen to any of us tomorrow,
mm-hmm.
right? And if my thing is, once you read this book, pass it on to somebody, and pass it on to somebody who needs it or wants it. So the book was never intended to make money, or else I would be saying, everybody buy a copy, never pass it on to anybody,
mm-hmm.
right? So, but it's 100%, I want you to give this to somebody who needs it. I send out free copies all the time. And can I tell a quick story?
Yeah, absolutely.
About that? It's a funny story. So, months ago, do you know who Meghan McCain is?
I don't.
Okay, so she is the daughter of Senator John McCain, who recently just passed.
Yes.
She's on The View, all those shows. And while John is still alive, she was tweeting a little bit about what she was going through as a daughter. I tried to reach out to her through Twitter. I'd love to send you a book. But she never responded. She probably gets millions of messages a day. I get it, but I had to try just for myself. So being the committed kind of like proactive go-getter that I am, I somehow found a phone number for ABC Studios in New York City and researched on how to get books there and whatnot, and called them. It said I would love to be directed to your department that takes anonymous submissions for books. I said, okay. Sent it over and got a recording. We're not accepting anything, blah, blah, blah. Stop calling us, you freak, and whatever, right? The same thing. I mean, okay, cool. So then I somehow found out the mailing address for that studio, also the mailing address for her agent in LA, and just mailed her 2 books. One to each address, put a little sticky note on the front just saying, like, Megan, I've been there, and that was it. Yeah. So I go to the post office and send these, and Meghan McCain, care of ABC Studios, or whatever it was. And the lady at the post office takes them, and she looks down, Meghan McCain, and then looks at me and has like a little smirk on her face. And I'm thinking like, oh, you think this is creepy fan mail I'm sending her? And this is like anthrax or death threats or pictures I've cut out of her on the TV, and now you think I'm a 36-year-old creep.
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty humorous that, I'm just assuming that she thought that, but every time I go back to that post office now and mail another book, she kind of gives me a weird look. But
who's he after now?
What's that? Yeah. But It's okay. Will the book get to her? I don't know. And I'd say chances are slim, because she probably does get creepy fan mail from other 36-year-olds.
Sure.
But I had to try.
Yeah.
Right. Because I know what she's going through. But yeah, I send them all the time. I tell people, like, it's on Amazon because that's an easy way for people to easily access the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have the means or logistics power to send books around the world. So that's there. But if you can't get a book, if you can't afford it, let me know and we'll figure out a way to get you a copy.
Sure.
So that's been like kind of my model since day one.
Well, you state in the book itself saying that this is not like, you're not going after this for financial gain.
No. Otherwise, I would have wrote a different book,
Sure.
I don't know. But 100%, it's not financial gain at all. It's just, man, it sucks being in that position, that helpless, hopeless feeling. And I know that your stomach just hurts. And what do I do next? And I didn't know. And I learned the hard way. Multiple times, just sitting at my computer, just drinking, next thing you know, you've got 8 empty beer bottles there because you're so sad and you think this is going to help you. And it doesn't. So I'm hoping with what I've shared in the book can shed some light on other situations. And although my father did pass away, I'm sure it could help individuals who are caregiving for a loved one going through cancer, but who have more of an optimistic outcome.
Sure.
Right? Because there's a lot of similar things you got to do. If someone's going through chemotherapy, their immune system's going to be shot. So you've got to take care of them that way. And also, I guess, like, talking a bit about the myths that some patients go through, because I think media plays a big part in it. Just kind of dispelling some of those. And, it's crazy. It's like every second you turn around, somebody new is diagnosed with cancer.
Yep.
Right? And I often wonder is this because of social media? Because we're so close to new information that we see this? Was it like this 20 years ago or not? Right?
Yeah.
Is there, I don't know, like, are we, I really believe that we can manifest our own disease. And is social media playing a role in disease manifestation?
Well, let's talk about how you stated it in your book. You didn't get so specific as to social media, but you did say a lot about mental, how happy you are and how mentally healthy you are does play a role,
right,
on how your body, on your health.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So, like, the way I was saying it is, like, if you continually hear cancer, it's going to be in your head, a million thoughts a day.
Sure.
You're going to manifest that. But also, it's proven, the happier you are, the healthier you are.
Yeah.
Right. And the healthier your immune system is, and the body is an amazing thing. It can fight off disease, and that's what it's made to do. But you're right. Is social media putting us in this position of depression and anxiety, which lowers our immune system, which makes us more prone to different diseases?
Yeah.
And I say yes. Right. So I think it's about getting back to that, a great state of mind, which I am still doing, because, like, that after my dad passed, I was in a terrible state of depression.
Of course.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's I would say only in the past, like, few months have I been feeling my best. And, he passed away in early 2015. And that's how long it takes. I mentioned in the book, it's like, take as long as you need and don't rush it, because that's the first step, or that's how you're going to fail for sure, is if you rush trying to go through that grieving process.
It's going to make you more aware of how long it's taking. And then
Exactly.
things are just going to start piling up. Like anything else in life, it's a long game.
Right. Yeah.
You have to be patient. You have to give yourself time.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think for myself, it's been a lot of exercise, meditation, trying to eat healthier. That's been helping me cope with all of it. Like, it'd be rare for me to like have a full conversation about this without like choking up a little bit. And now I'm getting a lot better at that. And because of this book's out there, because I've been on like a bunch of different podcasts, a lot of people are finding out about who I am and sending me personal messages. Like I go through a few messages or DMs on Instagram a day of people who are going through this all around the world. And one of the biggest questions is, my loved one passed months ago. Does the sadness ever end? And I tell them it gets better, right? But it doesn't end. Like, honestly, the other day, I actually had a dream where my dad was in it. We were close and doing stuff, and I woke up pretty emotional.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end, but it just gets easier.
And that stuff stays with you.
For sure. In the grieving process, it's so important to surround yourself, I think, with friends and family, people who have gone through it. And, some days I'm answering 10 to 20 different messages. Very time consuming.
Yep.
Right? And when I say time consuming, I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean it in a statistical way. It's taking my time to respond to these. And all these business books that I've read and talked about, they say, automate that and don't waste your time doing that. And I will never do that. I will always devote as much part of my day to writing a personal letter back to even if they send 3 lines, I know what they're asking. I'll write paragraphs because I think it's so valuable to have somebody who's been through it to talk to them about what's next.
That in itself is emotionally draining, though, wouldn't you say? Like, I'm not saying stop doing that. I'm just saying like that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it probably takes it out of you because you are reliving and pouring. Like, you're not going to go into that just sending like a non-unique message, right? You're giving it some thought, and you're giving of yourself and your experiences. And
for sure. And I wonder if I say it in the book, that the book was definitely very therapeutic for me to write.
That was a question I had, so I'm glad we're getting it.
So to talk on that, like when, so the reason why I wrote the book is going back to those social media, when I started sharing the stories on social media, they were getting a lot of traction. I was getting messages from people, can I meet with you? That's when I thought there's something here. What's the best medium to get it out? And I thought it was a book. So I knew I was going to do it, even when my dad was still alive. And when my dad passed, I thought, okay, perfect. I'm going to write this in a month and it's going to be out there. And I started writing it. I didn't realize how hard it was to write. And I have so much respect for authors now, like unbelievably so much more respect. I even hate calling myself an author. I don't think I fall into that category. But from when my dad passed to like getting it out took like 3 years. The majority of that was writing and the rest figuring out how to get it out. But while writing that during that time was very therapeutic for sure. There would be times where I'd write something and I would just come to tears while writing it, while reliving those memories. And I feel like if I didn't do that, those may still be bottled up inside me, waiting for an explosion, right? So my writing was a way for those emotions to get out of my body that needed to be there. And I still deal with a lot of guilt and regret, I would say. The biggest thing I felt guilty about was when my dad passed, having relief, right? And that I could go back to a normal life. I felt guilty about that I shouldn't. But I think it's okay to do that. And the biggest thing that keeps me going is I know my dad would never want me to keep holding on to that feeling of caregiving. Like go back to your life.
Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be emotions that'll stick with you, I guess, for the rest of your life, for sure.
I would imagine. Yeah. One thing that I liked about the book, again, to kind of go back and how it's kind of like this thing that so many different people can get something from. I like when you were talking about how to not hold grudges with people
Yeah.
that maybe weren't there for you, or that didn't know what to say or what to do.
Yeah.
I think that's probably something that affects a lot of people.
It's that old saying, it's like you don't really know who your friends and family are until someone gets sick.
Yeah.
Right. And I experienced that big time where there's, friends and family not even giving the situation I was in the time of day. It didn't seem like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it angered me, for sure. It did. But then again, you don't know what's going through their head. Are they worried that it's going to bring up some emotion that you don't want to talk about? They don't know we all go to funerals, and how awkward are funerals,
Yeah.
right? So awkward, but you go to show support, and I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm here. I don't know. And in your head, it's like, I don't know what to say to you, but it's just showing up is all that matters,
Yeah.
right? And I get it. So I did hold grudges towards individuals who I thought would have been better friends.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got over it quickly, because you realize, what's the point?
Why hold on to it?
Yeah, you're right. Because any sort of negativity that's growing in your body is only making your own situation worse. If it's because they were just nervous to talk about it, they didn't know what to do, they wanted to, great, they've got to figure that out. But if it's because, they're actually a dick and they don't care, then that's something that they have to deal with for the rest of their life,
Yeah.
being that person.
And they will be dealing with it.
Exactly. And it's only going to have negative impacts on their future. Well, on their future. And I don't care. Be that person. That's fine, because I'm going to go move on with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate that you weren't there, but that's fine. So, yes, I did have grudges for a little bit, but I've since got over them for sure.
It won't be the thing that you remember
Right
during this time.
Exactly. That's a very good way to put it. I have such amazing memories during that 2.5 years, positive memories in such a negative time, that those are the ones that I remember for sure.
Yeah. We briefly touched on this. So the things that you wrote about, things like showing love and the importance of showing love to people, giving of your time is the best gift you can give.
Yeah.
How evident, did you know that when it was going on, or was this something that you you realized what it was when you were writing the book, or after?
Well, realizing what love actually is in terms, I guess, of not your stereotypical definition of love. To me, love is time. Love is, spending time with those who mean the most to you, who I think love is the best medicine of all. Love is a cure-all. But actually knowing that I was giving love during that time, I don't think I did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I realized what I was doing. And going back to just being, it was the instinct that was in me on what to do.
Right.
And it's that gut feeling. Even times when my dad was in the hospice and sleeping, I would just sit there beside him, right? Knowing I would feel better knowing that he knew I was beside him,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that we didn't even chat. But to me, that's what love is to be there for those in times of need and desperation. And you'll see amazing things happen when you feel somebody with so much love and energy. Because, we know the opposite of love and what that can do to somebody. It's a big theme in the book for sure. And I hope to pass that on to other people.
Yeah. Have you spoken to anybody that has read the book and is, perhaps going through something very similar and has gotten something from it?
Yeah, lots of people.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it makes my dad's fight worth it. So I feel like there's a lot of people who get diagnosed with cancer, Doctor comes in, you've got 6 months to live, and they live 6 months, right? And because they have that in their mind, oh, I got 6 months left. Why do anything? Let's get out of here. When that's just based on stats and averages and whatnot. So if my dad would have taken that 9-month diagnosis and passed away in 9 months, this book probably wouldn't exist. Right? Because I wouldn't have had the material, the memories, the content that was provided to me over those 2.5 years to give out to those people who need it. So when I get that feedback, it's like, you know what? My dad did more than just get diagnosed with cancer. He got diagnosed, he fought, and now he's helping others in those situations. It makes everything worth it. It makes that journey worth it. And yeah, a lot of people are finding it to be helpful in certain areas. And this is all just based off, like, I mean, you get reviews on Amazon, but the private messages are the ones that mean the most because those get into detail about how specifically it helped them. Now, another way that I didn't see it coming is a lot of people who have been through this years ago are buying it and just like, this sounds exactly like my story. Thank you for sharing yours because I thought I was alone in doing this, and now I know that I'm not. So thank you. So those are the things that make my day, for sure.
It's amazing. When I was explaining to my parents and like my family, like I was telling them that I have this guy Jay coming on, and they were familiar with Friends with Hearts.
Oh, nice.
But I was telling them about the book, and I was reading it and kind of trying to give a background. And there was this one story that I was telling about when your dad had his license taken away.
Yeah.
But then when he got it back, and you asked the doctor, okay, so how do we go about getting his license back? And she's like, I've never seen this before. I don't know. That was such a a book about about cancer. It was such a high point of like victory.
Right. And I think it's like during those times, you've got to take those small victories and run with it. Right. And she basically told us, like, after X amount of months or a year, and my dad hadn't had a seizure, nothing. Basically, can he get his license back? And she told us, I don't know, because everyone in his position has died by now.
Wow.
Right. And it's like, I could have taken that two ways. I'm like, oh, like, so he's probably going to die tomorrow? But I took it as like, okay, what you're saying is like, we're doing something right and continue doing that. So yeah, then we just like called all these neurologists and the ministry and tests, and he got his license back.
Amazing.
And doctors were just like, okay, I don't know what you're doing, but continue that. Yeah. And I think it was, you're right, it was a huge victory for a lot of us, especially my dad. It gave a little bit of independence back to him. Going back to like when I got arrested, I couldn't drive for a year. My dad was giving me rides, my mom too, all over the place, right? So now that he needed rides everywhere, not a big deal. I will take you all the time. But there was still like that element where he feels like if he was at home and he's like, I just want to go to the store and get something, and I just don't want to ask Jay, so I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Now he can do that. Just pop up and go.
Yeah.
But we were still all frantic, him out on the street by himself, right?
Yeah, sure.
This guy was supposed to be dead now, and he's driving, but yeah, he got his license back, and that was a huge victory.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it gave us hope, right? And I hope people, what they take from that story is that they can relate, they can interchange license and driving to whatever their loved one's going through, and give them hope that, like, don't necessarily always listen to your doctors, and not taking them, they're such intelligent individuals, but at times feel free to question them, right? Question what they say. And because if we never questioned the doctor, he wouldn't have got his license back.
Exactly.
Right. So always question, always research, and always fight for what, you feel is right to gain those victories.
So like, on the note of not listening to your doctors, that sounds weird, but you kind of did that in the sense that you went and saw a naturopath, and is that the proper term, naturopath?
Naturopath, yeah.
And started integrating that into like balancing it out with like the medical and the...
Right. So the way I found is that if my dad listened 100% to his oncologist and did everything he said, he was going to live 9 months to a year based on their statistical averages of somebody in that position. But what if you explore other avenues of healing? So we went to a naturopath, and what the naturopath was able to do was different things, taking something to help prevent spreading of cancer. Also, my dad didn't have a ton of side effects, but at one time was no appetite and really tired. He was taking something that brought his appetite back through the naturopath, increased energy. So I think that side of things was helped build the immune system as well. Whether those are placebo effects or not, I don't know, but I'm okay with that if it is. It was a hard time getting him to go to the naturopath because he was this hippie doctor, right? It's going to give him potions and leaves and something like that. And that's kind of how I thought it was as too. I talk about in the book how wrong I was and how terrible I felt using such an insulting definition for a naturopath doctor. So the point was explore other areas of healing, whether it's, yoga, meditation. Don't just listen to these oncologists, because as intelligent as they are and beyond intelligent, they're going off by what they know. And some are into the naturopathic side, but some are way against it, right? So look at like I got my dad appointment with an iridologist. I forget the term of the iridologist.
I'm not sure.
It's an eye doctor.
Okay.
They look into your eyes and then like see like what's wrong. And then
optometrist?
No, it's a different term. But he wouldn't do that. So I'm like, okay, like I can't force you to do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did explore other areas of nutrition and always questioning the doctor. We questioned the doctor one time about taking him off a certain pill that was supposed to prevent a side effect. He was never having it, but it was causing constipation and it was just hurting him. So can we come off this pill? It's like, if you want, it's up to you. I'm like, yeah, let's try it.
Yeah.
He was fine after that.
Yeah.
And if we didn't question that, it would never. So those are the little things that I kind of got angry about, but I shouldn't.
Sure.
And going forward, I hope to pass that information on to people. It's just a research question. And you're basically a family of doctors, right? You're your own team trying to figure this out. I guess in my situation, it was how do we extend his life versus cure this cancer? And I look at it in a sense of a loss because he died, and that was a loss I failed. That's how I thought I failed. But we were victorious in extending his life beyond what doctors imagined.
Yeah. You proved science wrong.
We did. And that's the blog post. So he was given 9 months to a year on March 5th of 2013. And I didn't really announce it to the world, I guess, until a year and a day later, where he wasn't supposed to see that day. Yep. So I think I titled it, "The Blog Post That Science Said Wouldn't Exist." Yeah. And I was so happy that day. And I remember giving him a hug in the morning. I gave him a card that just said thank you on it. And we threw him a party that day just to celebrate what he had been doing, right? So it was a magical day. It's always going to be a magical day for me. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, without going too in-depthly, if you had to summarize the book in a what's the biggest takeaway people can expect to get from this book?
Well, I think, again, going back to spending time with family, right? And the overall theme is about love. On a technical side, the caregiver side can gain a lot of input on what they're going to go through as a caregiver, what they're going to go through after if their loved one unfortunately passes away. things that we did that I believe helped extend his life. Now, that's a very touchy thing to say and a very tough thing to say, because I get it. If somebody gets this book and was like, it didn't work, and it's like, because I'm not saying that it might work for you. I'm saying this is the things that we did that doctors were baffled at why he was living so long. There could be a million other things that I don't even know existed scientifically wise, medically wise. I don't know. But yeah, it's just about kind of spending time with your family, and that. So I'm in a very, let's say, troublesome financial situation since I took that leap into caregiving, into a lot of debt. And it sucks, right? But I always say, I don't want to know a life where I chose money over my father. And I couldn't possibly imagine the amount of regret I'd be living in right now if I didn't make the choices that I did. So I'm hoping just to get the point across to, spend time with them, make an effort to do it. And because if you don't, you will hate yourself otherwise. And I see it firsthand within my family right now. It's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Well, if people want to find out more about you, your organization, Friends with Hearts, if they want to read the book, where can they go?
Yeah, so the book is called My Dad Got Sick. You can search for it on Amazon or go to mydadgotsick.com. Friends with Hearts, friendswithhearts.com. Depending on when you listen to this, site might be up again or not. I don't know. There's like a Facebook page for that too, but it's very seasonal, so it'll be up by next Christmas. Yeah, photography site jperry.ca, and yeah, I think that's it. I don't know. I got a bunch of projects I don't even know about, but
Instagram.
Oh yeah. So Instagram, just jperry, JYPERRY. I share a lot of stories on this journey with the book, which is very new to me. Being called the author is something I very grateful for, but have a very hard time taking on, because to me, Stephen King is an author, right? You're not ever putting me in the same world as Stephen King at all, right? And somehow if you put author beside our names, you're both authors. No, we're not. I like to say it's more of a storyteller than author.
Okay.
And I should never be an author whatsoever. If you look at like growing up in high school English classes, I hated them. I truthfully cheated my way through them. I had a brother that was 2 years older than me. And I don't know why in my school, they just ran the same curriculum every year. And I just used all his essays going forward. And yeah, I never got caught. And I don't say to do it, but it's just, I'm being honest, and it's what I do. So I hated writing. I hated essays, hated reading, and not a good writer. I have a great editor who helped me with this project. But I think it comes out in my writing, that the vulnerability, the truth, the honesty about what I'm saying. And, you look past that. I didn't go to school for journalism or something like that. So yeah, I should never have been an author. And when I was writing this book, I looked into a little bit of the psychology of writing and reading, and researched that a bit. And I used myself as an example for a little bit. Any book, I hated reading, hated it growing up, barely read it all. I can always remember myself looking at a chapter and like reading, and then like going ahead, a couple of pages ahead, and like, oh, there's 20 more pages in this chapter. Like tomorrow, right? Yeah. And then, so I think that we live in a world where the quality of a book is too harshly judged on how thick it is, right? My intent for this book was for an amazing reader to read it in a few hours. If not a couple days, whatever, because I don't want you to spend time reading this book. I don't. I want you to look at it, gain the knowledge, gain the stories, the emotion that comes with it. Now go spend the time with your loved one. I don't want you to spend time reading. I want you to spend it with those who matter the most. So the book is intentionally short because it was a lot longer. And I looked at it and I'm like, there's no point in having this in. This has no relevance to anything. Cut it, because I don't want to waste time and just add filler material.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the psychology into the writing and reading that I looked into. And I think it's been beneficial. I've heard a lot of people saying it was a good read and I was able to focus the whole way through.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I can say that honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not a heavy reader at all. For that reason alone, I get sidetracked very easily.
Yeah, you read something and you're like, what did I just read? Right? It happens a lot.
Definitely. And this one I was engaged all the way through, which was, it was great.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
And it worked.
I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Jay, I appreciate you taking the time to be here today to share your story.
Yeah, thank you for asking me to do it, and thank you for doing this and sharing the amazing guest story.
Of course.
I look forward to seeing where this goes.
Me too.
And thank you so much.
Thanks for checking out the Road Traveled podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can find more episodes with other great guests at jessedhunt.com/podcast or on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and YouTube. If you've been enjoying the podcast, I'd love it if you could subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or whatever platform you use to listen on. It actually makes a difference in getting the show out there for other listeners. If you're interested in getting Jay's book, My Dad Got Sick, you can find it on Amazon or go to mydadgotsick.com. You can also find Jay on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as his website, jperry.ca. Thanks again for checking out the show. We'll see you next time.